The Supreme Court, in a deeply concerning 5-4 decision, has allowed the release of $2 billion in USAID funds. This ruling, while seemingly limited in scope, has sent shockwaves through the legal community and beyond. Many fear it represents a dangerous expansion of judicial power and a blatant disregard for the separation of powers. This case, with its origins in the Trump administration's efforts to control spending, raises fundamental questions about the role of the judiciary in our system of government. The court's majority, in a disappointingly brief and unconvincing opinion, failed to adequately address the serious constitutional concerns at stake. Their decision essentially rubber stamps a lower court ruling that many legal scholars believe was deeply flawed. The implications of this decision are far-reaching, and could have a chilling effect on the ability of future presidents to exercise their constitutional authority. This case is not just about $2 billion, as significant as that sum may be. It is about the very foundation of our republic, and the delicate balance of power that has sustained it for centuries. Justice Samuel Alito, joined by Justices Thomas, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh, penned a scathing dissent that exposed the majority's flawed reasoning and highlighted the dangerous precedent set by this decision. Alito's dissent is essential reading for anyone who cares about the future of the Supreme Court and the rule of law in this country. He meticulously dismantles the majority's arguments and exposes their decision for what it is, a naked power grab by the judiciary. Alito correctly points out that the majority opinion pays lip service to the principle of separation of powers while simultaneously gutting it. He argues persuasively that the court's decision to allow a single district court judge to dictate spending by the executive branch is a gross overreach of judicial authority. This decision, Alito warns, threatens to transform the federal courts from impartial arbiters of the law into roving commissions charged with overseeing the federal government. Alito's dissent is a clarion call for a return to judicial restraint and a respect for the constitutional limits on judicial power. It is a timely reminder that the judiciary, while an important branch of government, is not above the law. The origins of this case lie in a questionable ruling by District Judge Amir Ali, a Biden appointee. Judge Ali issued a temporary restraining order, or TRO, that prevented the Trump administration from withholding the $2 billion in USAID funds. This TRO was later converted into a permanent injunction, and the case eventually made its way to the Supreme Court. Judge Ali's initial TRO was highly unusual and, in the opinion of many legal experts, a clear abuse of his discretion. TROs are typically intended to maintain the status quo in emergency situations, not to dictate government spending on this scale. Furthermore, the legal basis for Judge Ali's decision was flimsy at best. He relied on a novel and expansive interpretation of the Administrative Procedure Act, or APA, that few legal scholars believe is justified. Judge Ali's decision, and the Supreme Court's subsequent failure to overturn it, raises serious concerns about the politicization of the judiciary. It is difficult to escape the conclusion that Judge Ali's decision was motivated more by his own policy preferences than by a faithful application of the law. Justice Alito, in his dissent, focuses specifically on the TRO issued by Judge Ali, arguing that it was not only procedurally flawed, but also a violation of the fundamental principle of sovereign immunity. Sovereign immunity, a bedrock principle of Anglo-American law, generally shields the government from being sued without its consent. Alito argues that the APA, the law upon which Judge Ali relied, does not waive sovereign immunity in cases like this. The APA, he contends, only allows for injunctive relief against government action, not monetary relief. By ordering the government to release $2 billion, Judge Ali effectively awarded monetary relief, even if he did not frame it as such. This breach of sovereign immunity is deeply concerning and sets a dangerous precedent. If allowed to stand, it could open the floodgates to a torrent of lawsuits seeking to force the government to spend money on a wide range of pet projects favored by activist judges. Section 5. A dangerous precedent. Implications for judicial power and future cases. The Supreme Court's decision in the USAID funding case is not just a narrow ruling on a specific set of facts, it is a dangerous precedent that could have far-reaching consequences for the balance of power in our government. By upholding the lower court's decision, the court has essentially given a blank check to activist judges who wish to impose their will on the democratically elected branches of government. The implications of this decision are particularly troubling in light of the increasingly polarized political climate in this country. With Congress often deadlocked along partisan lines, the judiciary is increasingly seen as the only venue where meaningful policy changes can be achieved. This is a dangerous trend, as it undermines the democratic process and threatens to transform the judiciary into a super legislature. This case is a stark reminder of the importance of judicial nominations and why it is essential to have judges who understand the proper role of the judiciary in a constitutional republic. The Supreme Court's decision in the USAID case has sparked outrage among many members of Congress, particularly those who view it as a blatant overreach of judicial power. However, whether Congress will be able to take any concrete action to rein in the judiciary remains to be seen. Congress is deeply divided along partisan lines, making it difficult to achieve consensus on even the most uncontroversial issues. The likelihood of Congress passing legislation to limit the scope of the APA or to clarify the limits of sovereign immunity seems remote at best. Some members have called for impeachment proceedings against Judge Ali, but such efforts are likely to be symbolic at best and could further inflame partisan tensions. The sad reality is that Congress, for all its bluster, may be powerless to stop the slow creep of judicial activism. This case highlights the need for structural reforms to restore the balance of power in our government. While the Supreme Court has allowed the release of the $2 billion in USAID funds, the legal battle is far from over. The case will now return to the lower courts, where the plaintiffs will continue to fight against the release of the funds. The plaintiffs have several legal arguments at their disposal. They can argue that the Biden administration's plans for the funds are not in line with the original intent of Congress when it appropriated the money. They can also argue that the release of the funds would violate other laws, such as the Impoundment Control Act. These legal challenges are likely to take years to play out, and it is impossible to predict with certainty how they will be resolved. However, one thing is clear: the fight over the proper role of the judiciary in our system of government is far from over. The Supreme Court's decision in the USAID funding case is a stark reminder of the dangers of judicial activism. When judges substitute their own policy preferences for the will of the people, as expressed through their elected representatives, they undermine the very foundation of our democratic republic. Judicial activism is a threat to the rule of law because it erodes public confidence in the impartiality of the judiciary. When judges are seen as partisan actors, their decisions are more likely to be viewed as illegitimate, regardless of their merits. The only way to restore public confidence in the judiciary is for judges to embrace a philosophy of judicial restraint. Judges should interpret the law, not make it. They should respect the role of the other branches of government and refrain from substituting their own judgment for that of the people's elected representatives. The Supreme Court's decision in the USAID funding case is a deeply troubling development. It represents a dangerous expansion of judicial power and a blatant disregard for the separation of powers that is so fundamental to our constitutional order. This decision, if allowed to stand, could have far-reaching consequences. It could embolden activist judges to overrule the other branches of government on a wide range of issues, from climate change to immigration to healthcare. This would lead to a fundamental transformation of our system of government, with the unelected judiciary assuming a dominant role. The time has come for all Americans, regardless of their political persuasion, to stand up in defense of our Constitution. We must demand that our judges exercise restraint and respect the limits on their power. Failure to do so could lead to a constitutional crisis from which our republic may not recover.